subscribe and turn on those notification bells on YouTube and become part of the Patreon family at JFree906. Wait, what's that up there? That's a UFO! Bye guys, I gotta go and see if that's really a UFO!
All right, we are live, everybody. Jeff and John here with Beyond Our World. How you doing tonight, John?
Hey, doing great, Jeff. Doing great.
I just realized as we were going live here that for some reason the Facebook is not connecting. So I don't know if Paula, if you were out there, if you could maybe jump on to the you are on the Facebook page and just tell people that I've tried connecting it several times. And it keeps saying, okay, you're good to go. And then when I say go live, it just drops out. So if you could tell people just to come over to the YouTube channel, I'd appreciate that. I don't know. I can try it one more time and see. Go ahead and just say hi.
No. I was going to say, why Jeff's shooting some technical difficulties here. Can anyone, or does anyone know, having watched several shows now, why I have the two or the constellation above my head? What significance does that have? I'm just kind of curious. I'll be monitoring chat to see what your responses are. But this is a specific constellation and there's a specific star, and I want to see if anyone knows maybe what significance this constellation and star might have. So I'm monitoring chat, and I'm going to say hi to a couple people. Brenda, thanks for joining. Carol, thanks for joining. Jan, fantastic. Jeff, Linda.
Nope, it's not working. I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, every time it'll reconnect and it gives me the green check mark, says we're good. I hit go live and it says,
no, we're good. And yes, Linda, you can let them know.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we're only on YouTube and Twitch tonight, so we'll see how that goes. Hey, everybody. So, so who got it? Okay, you've been saying hi to everybody.
Barbara just popped in.
Yep.
So hi to Barbara.
Hey, Barbara. How you doing? Jeff. So, what we decided to, thank you, Paula. What we decided to do tonight, and we kind of, prefaced this a little bit last week, was that we'd start tonight where we left off last week with the, I think we were doing the, hey, John, we were talking about the astronauts that were on the ISS and what they were seeing out there. So we'll bring that up here in just a minute.
Yeah, I believe, Jeff, it was the Russian cosmonauts. Is
that yes,
correct?
I'm sorry. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Russian cosmonauts that were, and they saw some really cool stuff on the with the camera there.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, Barbara's got an answer to you there.
Okay. I know you can use the Big Dipper. Yes, that is one of the things. Yes, and we've been discussing a lot of navigation in in some of our other videos. So navigation was very important, and a lot of the ancients did use stars. Ursa Minor plays a major role in navigation, because with the Big Dipper you can find the Little Dipper or Ursa Minor, and once you find the pole star, you can navigate, because the pole star never shifts in the sky. It's a constant. And during the day, the ancients used the sun for navigation, and at night it was the North Star, the pole star. Good job, Barbara.
All right. Doreen is here too. Hi, Doreen. So she said, hi, everybody. Long-time listener, first-time chatter. All right.
All right.
And at some point tonight, we will also be jumping out and asking for you to call in. I'm just looking over to make sure I've got the phone turned on this time. Phone is turned on and it is connected. So, we'll ask and see if anybody wants to call in tonight and share with us a story of, a UFO story or abduction story, if you have one of those too. I mean, that would.
Well, I have been talking to some of our viewers and some of our moderators and admins, and there are stories out there, Jeff. I know there are stories out there. I'm not sure if they're a little bashful, but there are stories.
Well, and that's kind of the stigma too. People are, kind of reluctant to talk about that kind of stuff.
And that's fine. I understand.
Yeah. And I want people to know that feel free to talk about it here. This is the place where you can talk about it, and people will be interested to hear what you have to say. So don't feel like that stigma, goes around where, oh, you can't talk about paranormal or UFO stuff because everybody think you're crazy. Not here. All right. So feel free to call in. We'll give that number up in just a little bit.
And we understand that. You know, I've talked to many an experiencer, Jeff, and there's a lot. I've heard that can be very traumatic at times. The actual
Mhm.
some of the experiences. And so there might be a reluctance to share just because it's a painful memory. I'm not saying all
Absolutely.
experiences are like that. I'm not saying all visitations are like that. Technically we haven't proved any visitations at this point, or at least acknowledged it officially.
Hmm.
But from the experiences I've talked with, some of the experiences are quite nice, and some of the experiences are rather traumatic. So don't be afraid. I mean, if you guys want to share, this is the place to share.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine them being traumatic. I have not had a traumatic one. I've had a very interesting story
Okay.
that I could probably share. But I'll wait till we get the call ins and I'll share it then. And tonight, I didn't do it last week. So, man, I wish I could get that Facebook. I don't know why. Everything seemed to be working fine until we went live and then it just kind of dropped out. Barbara just said, they just beamed me back to Earth just for this show. All right. Well, that was nice. That was nice of them to get you here just in time. Oh, I wanted to ask too, what do you guys think of the music there at the beginning? That is from bensound.com. And we're that's one of those royalty free songs, but I kind of loved it because I thought, it kind of fits, and then it's got that, the electric guitar is kind of doing that kind of a eerie type of Twilight Zone type of sound
Mm.
there. So anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. Let's see. Burp said, I have not had a UFO experience, although I have had paranormal ones and a Bigfoot encounter. Really?
Mm. There.
Wow.
I'm dying to know.
Yes. Yes. We'll have to. Yeah, I'd like to hear that too. Too.
Well,
All right.
I
Love
know
Bigfoot.
we're doing primarily, Jeff, the UAP continuation, but
Hmm.
we will have in about 20 minutes a call-in segment,
Hmm.
and that'd be something I wouldn't mind hearing about.
Exactly.
Since Beyond Their World covers numerous subjects, I don't mind kind of going off script and hearing that. If that, who said that?
Barbara
Was it?
Wright.
Oh yeah, I would like to hear that. So when we
Hmm.
have that, is that something we can field, Jeff?
Sure. Why not?
Why
Absolutely.
not? I'd love to hear it. Again, Beyond That World is encompasses many different subject areas, UAPs, cryptoids, any number of things. So yeah, when we have that kind of call-in period, I'd like to hear some of this because this fascinates me.
Oh, she said, I'll save it for the Bigfoot show. Oh, well,
No, come on.
I know we were talking to,
Mm,
over on the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream. We were talking with Christian Roper. He was on the very first episode of Beyond Oak Island, and he said that he has not only paranormal experiences and UAP experiences, but also a Bigfoot experience too. So that would be cool to talk to. I told him, I said, we're going to have to get you on when we start this up. And so we're going to have to reach out to him at some point and have him come in and join us on the show.
Hey,
So yeah.
hey, Jeff, I want to know if you could do something for us, and
Mhm.
this is kind of off script, but can you go over? I just put it in chat, the private chat. The different encounters. Like there's a close encounter of the first kind,
Mhm.
and there's a close encounter of the second kind, and there's a close encounter of the third kind, which is the movie that Spielberg did.
Mhm.
Can you go over the different rankings of the close encounters?
Let's see. Yeah, let's see. The close encounter of the first kind is a visual sighting of an unidentified flying object or a
UAP.
UAP, aerial phenomenon, seemingly less than 500 feet or 150 meters away, that show an appreciable angular extension and considerable detail. Okay, so
So I'm
that
thinking
is
like
of the first kind.
Wright Patterson Airport, or maybe it's a pretty substantial close encounter. I mean, you're up
Mhm.
close and personal within 500 feet. You're seeing something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's the first kind.
First
The
kind.
second, yeah, close encounter of the second kind is a UFO event in which a physical effect is alleged. This can be interference from the functioning of a vehicle or electronic device, animals reacting to the physiological
and
effect,
and it cuts
such as
off.
paralysis,
Yes.
um, mhm, or heat and discomfort in the witness discomfort in the witness or some physical trace like impressions or
Hmm.
radiation burns or something along those lines.
Hmm.
So that is the second kind.
And I'm going to go ahead and paste in the third kind right now. And it's interesting because a lot of people might have different close encounters.
Mhm.
Many people have had close encounters of the first kind. I think that's the third kind right there.
Let's see. Close encounter UFO encounters in which this is okay. In which an inhabited animated entity is present. This includes humanoids, robots, and humans who seem to be occupants or pilots of a UFO. So you're
Oh,
actually encountering a either robot or humanoid type or occupant or a pilot type entity of a UAP. So that's the
so
third kind.
it says pilot. It didn't say human pilot. It said
No,
occupant or
pilot. Right.
pilot.
Right.
Which okay. So if it was a robot or like a drone from
Mhm.
something that was not of this earth, that would be considered a close encounter of the third kind. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So, feel free to call in when we have that segment, and, I'd be curious to know who has had close encounters of the first, second, or third kind. And there are ratings. And, I just want to throw that out there,
Hmm.
that don't be afraid if you've had a close encounter of the first kind. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. Now, the first kind would be kind of what I experienced, but
Yeah.
it was more than 500 feet away. It was definitely up in the sky. So yeah, so I don't know how that. I mean, is there considered one like of that nature a close? I guess that wouldn't be considered a close encounter. It'd be a
Encounter.
more just a sighting.
It'd be a sighting, a UAP sighting.
Mhm.
But yeah, a close encounter is when you're up close and personal with
Yeah,
whatever the
I
phenomenon
was
is.
not up close and personal when I saw the one that I saw, but it was sure made an impression on me. I'll leave it
Yeah,
at that.
yeah, it was absolutely a UAP UFO sighting.
Hmm.
So you experienced the phenomena of a UAP. Is
Yes,
that correct? Okay.
yes, yes,
So
and it was pretty remarkable. So yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Oh, and Brenda said you're lucky to see one, Barb. Thank you for sharing your experience. Yeah, Barb was talking about it with her and her sister. Don't want to hijack the subject. That's okay. We're okay
No,
with
no, no,
that.
no, no. It's
This is
fine.
part of kind of at the beginning of the show here, where we're welcoming that kind of stuff. So don't feel bad about sharing it. Um, let's see here. Indies. Oh, we got Indies antics. All right. Thanks for sharing, Barb. Yeah.
Hey, okay.
Were you afraid of the forest after seeing it? I would be. I mean, that's kind of that's kind of how would that set you after you've
Oh,
seen that? How does that make you feel about going in the forest after that? Mm.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Hey, can we post Jenny getting inky there?
Oh,
I think it's pretty funny. We- So
oh,
yeah, it'd be a close encounter of a
one
quarter of
quarter,
one
yeah, a quarter
kind.
of one kind. That's what I had. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you had, Jeff. I thought that was rather
That's,
clever.
I was gonna say point five.
Point
Point
five.
25 is good. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So
Yep.
we're gonna go ahead, Jeff. I think we're about 15
Yeah. All
minutes or
right.
so, maybe 20 minutes. I'd love to see the Russian cosmonauts that
Yes,
we
I
were
got
talking
that
about,
queued up.
and,
I'm
and
ready to
and
go.
see what the viewers think of that, and you and I can discuss what we think of that. I think it was just an interesting piece of footage. So do you mind
Yes, it
rolling
is.
that so we can
Yep,
watch
I
that
got
now?
it right here. I'm gonna queue it
Excellent.
up right now. There we go. Oops. Hang on. It'll go here in just a second. Okay. So I'm going to cue this up and run it. This is a Facebook video here. So here we go. Turn that down a little bit so I don't blow everybody out. You're going to be wanting to watch right in this area
Yep,
here.
there
Right
they
there.
are.
Look at that
There
right
they
there.
are.
And then there's little Aurora Borealis going by.
Yep. And it is on a time lapse. That's why the auroras are moving
Right.
so quickly.
Actually, the Aurora Borealis wasn't going by; they were going by it.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
guess would
We
be the
got
best
you.
way to put that.
Oh yeah, I can kind of see to the left, Jeff, a bit of the shadow of the craft, which I just saw. Which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yep.
and then some
There's some lights of the
Earth.
city below. So I'll back this up and shoot this again. And again, you
Yeah,
want to look right in here.
maybe we can freeze that, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see if I can here.
Boom.
Nope. I mean, right there. All
Right
right.
there. There's 4.
So
Yep.
yeah, so here's the UAPs that they found. And this one there actually ends up being 5 in the picture at some point.
Yeah. So
Let me
you
see if
can.
I can move it ahead just a smidge. There's 4, there's 5. So here's your 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one right here is your 5th one.
Yep. Yep.
Now, stars, yes, you can sometimes find stars that'll line up in the sky, in the night sky, but they're not going to be all moving together in a formation.
So are we saying, Jeff? I'm going to ask the question, and I would love to do. Are we? And I would love to see what the viewers think also. So you can type it in. Viewers, I'm going to ask this question. It's kind of an impromptu side dish. Is that pattern that we're seeing right now, is it intelligible? Is it being produced by an intelligibility of some type, whether
Yes. What do you
human
think about that?
or not, or extraterrestrial?
Yep.
You know.
Now, Kate said, I was watching a number of UAP videos and noticed that the lights seem to be in multiples in a way that can't be replicated in nature. Exactly. You're exactly right. I mean, when you see stuff like that, you know that it's not just,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not just some sort of a, stars or something like that. And let's see. Somebody else here.
And what's interesting about it, Jeff,
Oh,
is
Brenda.
you have 2 things going on.
Mhm.
You have the phenomena of the lights. That's one phenomena, and then you have the pattern that the lights are following. That's the second phenomena. So you have 2 things. I mean, you have to explain what the lights are first. Is
Mhm.
that may be natural. I'm not saying, but then you have the second layer of the intelligible pattern that the lights are producing.
Mhm.
And to have both of those at the same time, now that's when you get into, well, is that possible? Is that something that it's man-made, or is it something? I'm not ruling out man-made, but that's definitely something.
Yep.
And
Now, this is a good point here from Brenda. I wonder if it was one big ship as they stay in unison. And I wondered about that too. And we can roll this again. I think the one thing that it makes me wonder if it's one big ship is that I think at some points, like you can see this little, and I know I'm putting a pointer up here and I don't know how well you can see
no,
that.
we can see it very well, Jeff.
But right here, there is a star. You can see that behind it. I'm going to run it again and watch it.
I
And
see what
when
you're
it's in
saying, Jeff.
slow-mo,
Okay, I can see the star behind it. Yes. Okay.
yeah, you can see a star right here.
It's very faint, but I
Yeah,
can see it. Yeah. Yep.
I know it's hard to see if you're watching on a phone or something. It might be yeah, it does. Kate said it reminds her of the Phoenix Lights, and yes, it did me too. So I'm going to run it again and kind of watch and see if you can see stars in between the 5 lights as they form. So I'm going to back it up here, and then we'll run it again and tell me what you think. Now watch it. It does do it again in slow-mo. So we'll watch it second time.
Okay. Look at this. This is just.
Yeah, see, I can see.
I can see stars behind there, so it does look like it's separate.
Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to see the Aurora Borealis. Here it is. So, yeah, that was that. It looked like there was stars in between the 5 lights. So that would indicate that it probably was not. Now, it did look like there was a little bit of a distortion at times, but that's hard to say if that is what that would be. Actually, it's hard to say what that would be. And I'm going to close this down real quick, or just minimize it so you can see the website or the YouTube page that it's on. Video from Space, and it's Space is the name of the site. So,
hey, Jeff, is that something that you can cut and paste into your YouTube
yes,
channel?
as a matter of fact, I can.
Would you mind doing that?
Not at all.
Okay, that would be great.
I
So
got it
while
right
Jeff
there.
is doing that, Tom asked a great question. Jeff's going to do that right now. Do we have any sense of location of scale? We do not. I mean, I don't think there was any scale there. Tom, and depending on distance, is it vessel is gigantic? Yes. So there's no sense of scale there, but we are seeing stars in the background. So
Mm.
that's either a cloaking technology that reflects what's behind it, and Jeff, I'll have to tell you that story at some point, or it is separate ships, but we have no sense of scale. But they would have to be pretty large to be picked up.
Right.
Satellites, like when the International Space Station flies overhead, you can see it. You can see it, but you can definitely see a small, little, tiny, but you can definitely see it. And with a pair of binoculars, you can actually see some of the physical structures on the International Space Station.
Yep.
So it would have to be bigger than that. I mean, that's
Mhm.
very visible. So what else do we have here?
All right. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Brenda said she saw the stars too, but if it were translucent, it could have, as I have seen lights through one that went across the street on the street I live on. Oh, wow. That was what I think John cloaking. Okay. Yep. It did. Yeah, it did look like Jenny's getting inky with it. Jenny said it looks like the lights appeared, then got bigger. It did, and brighter. It did. It did seem like they got brighter because especially the fourth and fifth one on the top did seem like they got brighter
Yep.
before they completely disappeared, and they did disappear. I mean, and that was a weird thing about it is they didn't like shoot off. We've seen, and I'd like to at some point like to show that video if we can capture it, where it shows two different things happening. This was taken from the ISS, and it
Yes.
shows one moving across and then shooting up and through and another one shot straight up through the ionosphere and straight up into space. And this did not do that. These five were going along, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. They're just simply gone. So we didn't see them take off. And of course, that was time lapse. It was very quick. But yeah, I thought that was really neat. So, but they did not shoot off anywhere. They were relatively. They just disappeared. Simply
Hmm.
disappeared.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting, Jeff. I'm going to tell a little story here, and I think
Go ahead.
my next door neighbor used to be. This is way long ago, about 10 years ago, and I was in a different part of the state, and he was actually the translator for Nixon, who met with the Russian president at the time when Nixon was
Wow.
having those high-level talks. And I asked him point blank. I said, "Was there any talk about UFOs?" And he goes, "I can't tell you." And he still won't talk about it to this day. So
Hmm.
I started asking specific questions, and he said, "I can tell you this: there was a phone in in Russia, in Moscow, that if there was a unidentified aerial phenomena, a
Mhm.
UAP, that it wasn't U.S. You picked it up and say, you might see a UAP, it's not one of ours. And there's, and they would pick up or would say to the United States, it's not one of ours. So there was the communication back and forth. And I said, you can't tell me. He goes, I cannot tell you. And then he goes, but what if? And I said, what if? And, I kind of followed his, and he left me with a thought before he went in. We was just shooting the breeze,
Right.
over the fence. And he goes, what if what is reflected above can be reflected below? And
Hmm.
what he was referring to was cloaking. Like it would reflect what's above it below it. So it would be if it's a cloud above, it would
Right.
reflect that exact cloud below. And he
Right.
just kind of chuckled. And he goes, just ponder that. And he walked away.
Mm.
And that was the end of the conversation. But the fact that and then it's publicly known, I think now, but there was a direct line between the Nixon White House and the Kremlin, where there's a phone that you picked up and you would say, and I guess a lot of it had to do with nuclear warheads and nuclear strikes. You had to say, hey,
Right.
that missile's not one of ours.
Right.
But
Exactly.
it was also used for UAPs, is my understanding. So I thought
Hmm.
that was a kind of a tidbit that I thought I would share, because it was just interesting when he said that. He goes, what if? And he goes, I'm just going to leave you with that. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Don't leave me with your side. You got to tell me that.
That's all you got. And he just laughed and went, he went about his business.
Oh
We
my
we shot
gosh,
the breeze all the time. So,
that's crazy.
but yeah, that's kind of the story I wanted to tell, because to me, that being he was an insider, there was
Mhm.
something to it.
Yeah.
And what if the UAPs, if there's a cloaking technology, reflects what's above them, below them?
Would make sense.
You couldn't tell at that point.
Right.
There would be no distortion. It would be
Right.
exactly the way the sky is presented. And
Right.
if it's far enough away, the human eye couldn't tell the difference.
Right. And that's kind of the thing that was happening out at Skinwalker Ranch. Each time that Travis and the gang out there saw something, they saw a pinpoint of light or
Yeah.
like a tic tac type, UAP,
Hmm.
and it didn't streak off. It just simply stopped being visible.
Stop being
So it
visible.
did it then, did it have to okay, here I go with the Star Trek thing. Did it have to drop its cloaking for a moment to do something and then reestablish the cloak?
And again, we're going down a rabbit hole. Nothing's been proven.
I know.
And I always say, but when you have an ex Nixon interpreter,
Mhm.
the interprets for the U.S. to the Kremlin, saying that, it gets you to think like, okay, what if? And that would make a lot of sense to, if you have a cloaking device that underneath would reflect exactly what's behind,
Right.
because then you have your tic tac, it fades away, and there's still consistency in the sky. You wouldn't see any difference.
Right.
And I've texted you things before and showed you, the military has cloaking technology already.
Yep.
The invisible cloak, they have one of those, and the stealth was invisible to radar, the stealth bomber at one time. So a lot of these cloaking technologies are out there, and there's
Mhm.
things that we don't know about in in our shadow government, I'm sure.
Yep. Oh
So
yeah.
if we have it, certainly they have it.
Mhm. Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
for sure.
exactly. All right. There was another little tidbit that I wanted to jump over to if you're ready for that.
Sure.
This had to do, we were talking about administrations of the past, and this one is the
Oh
Reagan
yeah,
administration.
yeah, 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 yeah.
This is a document that was put out from the that was released. It was actually in the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, Digital Library Collections. And I'm going to bring this up and show it real quick.
And
Let's
then
see
and
here.
then you'll post to your YouTube channel also.
Yes, I will. Matter of fact,
Well,
I'll do that first.
okay.
I'll
And
do that first.
when Jeff and I went searching for things, one of the Freedom of Information Act, one of the things that they had was these documents in the Reagan Library, but you had to scratch around for them.
Mhm.
So when I saw this, I immediately picked it up, the PDF, and sent it right over to Jeff. But this is a very interesting document. Jeff's going to kind of go through it a bit with you.
Yeah, it's and again, it's from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, and then this PDF from a folder from our textual collections, and then of course it's got the case number and all of that kind of stuff. And then it talks about some different things here, and I linked this in the chat there, so you can check it out yourself
Cool,
anytime
cool.
that you would like to. But one of the things that the beginning of it here shows some of the um, documenting paperwork that they use to kind of say where did it come from, the name of correspondence. You got Richard Sigismund,
Yes.
Sigismund.
Hmm.
That's how that is. Richard. And again, I'm probably botching the way his name is pronounced.
No, no.
Sigismund. And it's the UFO phenomenon is the subject. Okay, this is the White House correspondent tracking worksheet right here on
Yeah,
there.
and this is before they track anything on. This is kind of the hand way they used
Right,
to track it. And
right.
what's interesting, Jeff, is this is not an outside memo.
Mm-mm.
This is actually within the White House,
Yes,
because
that's very
it
important.
required a White House response.
Yeah, that's what's important, and it's the dated here. It's now they did theirs dating backwards back then. It's actually 7/24 of 1983.
Three.
So 1983 was when this thing was received. And there's a couple other people's names here and some people that signed off on it, which is, it shows the date 8/11 and whatnot on here. And it says, per Mr. Devers' instructions, a reply is requested within 10 days. That's what it says here.
Mhm.
And you'll see Mr. Devers pop up again here as we go along. And then here's some more. This is the way they coded it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Media ill, and we were trying to figure this out. It was kind of hard to figure this out.
The codes
Exactly
are at
what
the bottom, but there's specific codes.
yeah. See, here's the codes. Yeah,
L is letter, so that's the media code. So they were going
yeah,
to respond internally with a letter.
yep. So, but we'll skip on past some of that.
Okay,
Here's
okay.
okay. This part is pretty hard to read.
Now, you can blow that up a bit, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got it. Well, I can't get
Okay,
it much bigger than that.
that's about as big as you can make it. Yep.
And basically, it's from the Michael Sigismund. He's in Boulder, Colorado, and it says, "Thank you for your recent letter to Mr. Michael Deaver requesting information about unidentified flying objects (UFOs) investigations policy. In the course of a single week, the president and his staff received many thousands of communications. As he and his immediate staff cannot possibly respond to each one, many are, and that's really hard to see, I think, necessarily referred
Necessarily,
to
yes.
or
Necessarily.
referred for answer to the Cognizant Executive Agency, whatever that is. Executive Agency. There, an official designated as the White House liaison officer gives correspondents such as yours the same careful consideration they would were they able to do so themselves. This is our responsibility in the U.S. Air Force, and the reason I am answering. Okay, so they do try to give it, an answer and talk to it. They goes to the office and all that. So let's see. They did talk in here about Project Blue Book. It says, you are undoubtedly aware the United States Air Force ended its 21-year-long UFO examination Project Blue Book in December of 1969 because no evidence could be found that the sightings represented visits from outer space or were a threat to national security. Okay. And then it talks about NASA was asked by the president to look into the possibility of resuming the UFO investigations. After study all the facts available, NASA declared that nothing could be gained by further investigation. And the Air Force agrees with that decision.
Nothing could be gained. It didn't say we didn't have knowledge of anything.
Right. They're
This
very
is
careful to say
again, like we saw last week in the clips of the former
Mhm.
presidents and political leaders. It's the word choice is everything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But it does say up here that no evidence this is as of 1969 because no evidence could be found that the sightings represented visits from outer space.
From outer space, and it doesn't rule out interdimensional travel. I'm just saying, I'm gonna go down that. It just says from outer space.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
so we can go on. What
Sorry.
you want to go on with that though, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry. I was.
Yep.
And we got.
And so there's this kind of back and forth with these internal documents, and then there was a referral process.
Right.
Within 10 days, and this is kind of the internals now. They have received this letter, and this is kind of internal correspondence back and forth.
Yep. This is just talking about prompt action is essential, and they're saying, we got 10 days, we should respond to this. And this is Sally Kelly, director of agency liaison. Now we get down into some really interesting stuff.
Sally Kelly was the communication liaison for the general public, and kind of between the military or the different departments in the White House. Jeff and I actually took time to look her up, and she was in the Reagan administration for sure.
Yep.
She did hold that post.
Yeah, we did. This is where it gets kind of interesting right here.
Now, first of all, I would like to point something out, Jeff. Where is Michael Dever's address? Right here. Yes. So this is coming from the White House to the White House. So he's saying that he is in the White House, and this correspondence, therefore, is internal, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, here in the summary, this is the UFO. It's RE, the UFO phenomenon. And this is what's pretty cool about this right here. And you guys can read this if you want. I'll do my best. I'm not the best reader aloud like that, but I'll do my best here. A social psychologist with a broad background in education, media, and UFO research writes to advise that the government policy of UFO secrecy is rapidly becoming counterproductive and untenable. Okay? Counterproductive. Their secrecy behind everything is becoming counterproductive. All right. Correct. An erosion of government credibility is noted with the public and the media, given evidence of increasing awareness of the reality of the UFO phenomena and the existence of a long-term cover-up. So
it's revealing, Jeff.
It is very revealing
Uh,
because it sounds like right there, I'll continue into the next paragraph. Then we don't need to keep on going after that. But it says a meeting is requested to discuss the present need for a national education program to gradually condition the American people to the nature of UFO presence and its possible significance for the country. Now, did you get that? That's a very, very important sentence right there. I'll read it again. A meeting is requested to discuss the present need for a national educational program to gradually condition the American people to the nature of the UFO presence and its possible significance for the country. So, what
there
are
it
they
is.
saying right there? And what is happening today? Now, this was back in 1983.
Correct. So let's
Yes,
keep going
July
down.
21st, 1983.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. It is observed that the proposed educational program would fulfill what is perceived as the government obligation to respond to the growing need of the people for information, thereby reducing the present risk of mass anxiety and culture shock in the event of an escalation in the present level of UFO activity. In other
So,
words, if it got worse and worse, or
well,
more and more,
well, Jeff, there it is right there. First of all, they're saying, hey, the phenomena is real. Second, they're saying the phenomena has increased activity.
mhm,
Third, they're trying to address the same thing we're trying to address now, and disclosure is slowly happening, is
right,
the anxiety and the culture shock.
mhm,
There's social scientists within the government that study if disclosure happened, would it what effect would it have on mankind and society? Would the fabric of society suddenly unravel? Would there be anarchy? Would it but between science fiction films, things like Ancient Aliens, slow disclosure, I think they're trying to acclimate the public
mhm.
to the fact that these things could be real.
Yep. So, yeah. So that's pretty much what's happening today. Now they were talking about this back in July of 1983, and they were starting to discuss the fact that hey, maybe we should start conditioning the public, leak it out a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, and get people start conditioning them to the fact that UFOs are real.
Hmm.
Okay. Now we don't know that. I mean, back then, I don't think that ever happened. This meeting must have taken place, in my opinion, but we never, I don't think they really started to condition us back then. Do you think so, John?
Well, I know I've seen it before, and for whatever reason, I cannot put my hands on it. I've searched and searched. There was supposed to be a traveling exhibition
Mm-hmm.
during the Reagan era. And I've seen it before on TV, and I've seen it before on the internet. And for whatever reason, it's like it's purposely been scrubbed,
Mm-hmm.
where they were going to go from city to city, and you could walk through this exhibit showing the different races and contacts that we've had, since Roswell and
Yep.
what's known. Now, that was scrubbed. That never reached the light of day, but it was in existence.
Yep.
And there's footage of it, of what it looked like. And I have a feeling that goes with this meeting somehow.
Kate says she remembers that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you remember that. I've seen it somewhere. Maybe it was on an early Ancient Aliens video, but I remember seeing it. And I'm like, oh, wow. So Reagan was planning to disclose. And then based on the mass hysteria that they were predicting, and the kind of fabric of society, I think it was canned.
Yep.
And there
Yeah.
it is, culture shock.
Right there. Anxiety and culture shock in the event of an escalation in the present level of UFO activity. So, in other words, if the activity became more and more, people are going to freak out. If a mothership shows up over Washington D.C., people are going to freak out. So maybe, just maybe, we should start conditioning them little by little so that they don't freak out if and when that kind of thing
Correct.
happens, right?
Correct.
So, I mean,
And it's right there in the Reagan library. You have to scratch around for it, but Jeff, it's
yeah.
there.
And the fact that they're even talking about this means that in 1983 they know that there's going to be more UFO activity, and they also know that it is making an issue. They must know that it's true, right? That they
Absolutely.
must know at that point that there are UAPs and things that they don't know what they are, but they're out there and they've seen them, they've proven it. So maybe we should start conditioning the American public so they don't all freak out, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
That's the way I read it. And I know there's a question. When was the exhibit? The exhibit never happened.
You're right.
We seen footage of what it was supposed to be, almost like it was being presented. There was kind of a small trailer where it looks like it was being presented. That reached the light of day. There were other things that reached the light of day, but the exhibit never happened. It was suppressed. And I think at some point there was a decision by the military establishment not to go forward with it. And then you're talking 83. And here we are, 2021.
Right.
And now you have 3 presidents that have basically said, hey, there's something to the unidentified aerial phenomena that you see that we can't explain. Especially President Obama said, I can't explain it. 6 years earlier, which we saw last week, he said he knew nothing about it. And I think that was really the script that the presidents are told. This is what you tell the general public.
Right.
And there it is. I mean, Reagan was considering, full disclosure during his administration. Now, we did see last week, Jeff, we saw the UN speech by Reagan, where he says, what if, to unite us as a human race, what if aliens were present and invaded the U.S. or invaded the world? Would that not unite humanity?
We'd have a common enemy at that point. Yes.
Common enemy. But it was such a strange, out of place statement for an address to the UN.
And people weren't ready for that back then.
No.
They were not ready for that. They were not ready to say, okay, I believe in UFOs and UAPs. They definitely were not ready for it at that point.
To me, Jeff, this is kind of like a smoking gun. This is kind of like, okay, now they're saying we need to discuss what we're going to do about the subject matter. So it says the subject matter is real. The activity is increasing at this point, and it's now that we all have phones that have cameras in it, Jeff, everyone's documenting the phenomenon. You can't suppress. How many iPhones are there out there and smartphones?
Oh my gosh,
billions of them,
millions, trillions.
You can't suppress billions of people having the ability to hold up their phone and take footage and post it on YouTube. The government can't suppress all those those videos. It's impossible.
Yep.
So we have some other comments. Tom had a really good one. Yeah, just by introducing the idea of disclosure, they were trying to phase or condition the public. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And they're still trying to do it today, but they tabled the conversation for about 40 years.
What about 40 years? Yeah.
Yeah, 40 years.
Yeah. And Barbara's right. Back in the 80s, there was still a stigma about UAPs. Yeah, absolutely. And there is a little bit, but I think that over the years, people have become more and more conditioned. You go up to most people on the street, and if you did a poll of people walking by on the street and said, do you believe in life on other planets? I bet you would have an overwhelming majority would say yes. What do you guys think about that? Maybe a little side dish question.
Whoa. Can we do something, Jeff? Did we show the quote yet? Can we put up the quote if you're asking that side dish question? You want to hold off on that quote? You know the quote I'm talking about?
I don't think I put it on there, though. Did I put it on there? Yeah, let's hold off on it. Okay, we're going to hold off on that quote for a minute. The side dish question. So what's the side dish question, Jeff? What are you asking here? Well, I was just asking, do you think that if you were taking a poll of the American people anybody walking by on the street today, do you think you would have the majority of those people you asked believe in life on other planets? Or life outside of this world?
So is the question, what percentage of people do you believe would believe in life outside our planet?
Right.
Correct?
Right.
And you just want them to throw a percentage down?
Yeah, just tell me what you think.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, yeah, I'm watching.
If you asked 100 people, how many of them do you think would say, I believe in life on another outside of this world? I'll leave it like that. Hey, D Jones is here. That's pretty cool. Hi, D. Glad you're here. And say, I feel most people. Oh, let's see. What did Indy's Antics says? I feel most people believe in intelligent life on other planets, and no one will be shocked when they present themselves. I think you're right. So here we go. Oh, we got Tom Burns says 90%.
Wow.
Paula says 50-50. Brenda Dixon says 80%. Jan says 65. Wanda's at about 50.
50.
Indy's Antics says 100%. That would be good. I think so, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you've had so much of it in the media. I mean, it really started, if you think about it, as Orson Welles' War
Oh
of the
yeah, that's
Worlds. Yeah,
incredible. Yeah.
the radio show when when I think it was in New York. Jeff, am I correct about that? And people were calling in, think there was actually an alien invasion, and
Hmm.
there had to be a public announcement that no, it's a story, folks. Orson Welles is doing a story.
Right.
But and then you slowly had science fiction, which kind of started to explore it, and
Hmm.
different disclosures, and now you have the shows like Ancient Aliens, UFO
Hmm.
Disclosure. You have MUFON out there,
Yep.
and I think Tom DeLonge. You have certain people that are slowly trickling this out, and I think shows like Ancient Aliens. I almost think Ancient Aliens might be stay course
Help.
by the U.S. government.
Well, look how many. Yeah, yeah, and look how
Yeah,
many seasons have been out on that show. How many
um,
seasons of Ancient Aliens are
I'm
there?
gonna. If someone could look that up
12.
for me, that would be great. At least 10,
Oh
10
yeah,
to 12,
and
and
that means there's enough interest in it to keep that show going, even
correct.
though Giorgio Tsoukalos's hair is sticking out all the time. And he's like, aliens. I'm not going to say it's aliens,
Aliens,
but
but
it's aliens.
it's aliens.
Oh, let's see. What do we got? Okay, Bridget said 60%. I believe we're the ants and ET's ant farm. That's I know. I know. I know. Are we just an experiment sitting on someone's desk? This entire
Oh,
universe is our entire universe an experiment sitting on someone's desk. Oh, that's a good question, Wanda. The question is, are they hostile or not? I think that, if you believe the fact that we've been being visited for many, 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 many years, I would have to say that they are probably not, at least those ones, because we're still here. But have they been experimenting on people? Have they been? I don't know. I mean, there you go. Barbara says 75%.
oh my God.
I think, yeah. Oh, here's a good. Jan says, I think younger, the younger a person is, the higher the percentage. Yeah, yeah, that might be. That might be.
So yeah, Jan's suggesting it's generational.
Yeah.
As you get down into the generations and more people are accustomed to the possibility of it, and I think there's something to be said about generational wisdom.
Yep.
And
Tom said, based on today's technology and our limited space exploration, most people would be hard pressed not to believe we are alone. Yep. Yep.
and then
Kate says she loves his hair. You're talking about George
Syphilis, yeah. But Kate also gave us our seasons. Did you see the seasons? Jeff, two statements down.
Yeah.
Yep. 16 seasons,
Wow.
193 episodes.
See, that's crazy right there.
That's conditioning, though, Jeff.
It
That's
is.
completely.
It
Come
is.
on. I mean,
It is.
and maybe I'm wrong. As with any secret organization or society, and I go back to Templars and look at all sorts of Masons and Rosicrucians, but in this case, you hide things right out in the open. And when I'm suggesting, if it's not Ancient Aliens, that NASA very well could be a cover for
Mhm.
this kind of shadow program that's behind. So where
Yep.
are you going to hide NASA? You wouldn't hide NASA. You put NASA right out in the
Right.
open, and then what's going on
Front and
behind?
center. Yep.
Yep. And then no one would suspect it. Oh, you're shooting off another rocket into space. They're not going to ask where it's going. And once it's in space, how do we track it? We don't.
Right.
Human beings, it's only what, if they say it's here, I don't know what the technology is to track it. I don't, if they say it's in this quadrant of of the sky, okay, I'm
Mhm.
assuming it's right.
Yep.
But I believe NASA was originally invented to kind of cover up the investigation of UAVs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's smart. It's smart to
Yep.
hide it right out in the open.
Yep. Yeah. Paula says the older population can't grasp the possibility. The younger are more apt to believe. I agree. I think that that you ask more younger people and they would say the same thing.
I
think
think
so.
that has a lot to do with technology. That's the younger
Mhm.
people can use technology like no one's business. And my students, Jeff, can use technology better than I can. And I'm pretty tech savvy, so I'm like, how do you know how to do that? It's just amazing.
It's aliens.
It's aliens. It's aliens.
Giorgio also commented on the J.J. Abrams UFO documentary. Did he? Okay. What is this? My wife does his hair. What?
His wife.
Oh, his wife. I'm sorry. Yeah, his wife
Tsukulose's
does his hair.
Tsukulose's wife does the Tsukulose's hair. That's funny. Oh, I met Tsukulos. I met him about 3 years ago at Alien Con. Had my. I'll have to post it, Jeff. I actually had my picture taken with him and everything.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you got to show. You
yeah. I'm gonna
gotta
have to
share
post that.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you
Uh,
did. I think you sent that to me. Don't I have
Yeah,
it somewhere?
it's somewhere. Yeah, and
All right.
really nice. He's like, "Thanks for watching the show." Shook my hand. You pay your honorarium to the photography people, and they take your picture with Sukalos, and you have like about a 30-second chat with him. He was really cool. He's like,
Mhm.
"What do you want me to do?" I said, "Seriously, you really gonna ask that?" And I'm doing this, and he's doing this, and it was fun. It was a perfect picture. So I really enjoyed that. And if I'm handing over 50 or $60 for a picture, he's gonna do this, with me
Yeah,
doing the
exactly.
same thing. It's not aliens. He goes, "You really want me to do that?" And he goes, "Yeah." So he got that pose. It was priceless, once in a lifetime.
I wonder how many times he does that for people. Got to be crazy. All right. So
Oh,
now this document, as you saw, that we showed here was 1983 July, and it was the Reagan administration.
yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to step over a little bit to foreign country. Before we get to our side disc question, we're going to step over to foreign country.
Well,
And we're
there's a number of foreign countries that also reported it. And I think you and I discussed a specific one.
yes.
But there's a lot of foreign countries, especially
Mhm.
defense ministers and retired defense ministers and other high-ranking officials in foreign governments that
Yep.
have come forward. The U.S. seems to be dragging their feet with this. So,
Mhm.
having said that, what do you want to look at, Jeff?
Let's do I gotta find it. Hold on, it's up here.
Mm,
Let me drag it over here. I got screens all over the place. Here we go. Let me make it bigger. Now
okay.
we're not going to dig into this one too deeply, but let me bring it up here. Okay. UFOs and defense. What should we prepare for? Now, this is, as you can see, let me make it a little bit bigger here. Right here. Oops, I can't highlight it. There we go.
Yep. So it looks like it's written from the French Association of Cometa. This
Mm-hmm.
report details the results of a study by the Institute of Higher Studies for National Defense. So this is a think tank out of France that's associated with their national defense. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a pretty interesting document, Jeff. And I know you and I talked about it when you found this document, Jeff. And I think the document's fascinating, but it was 83 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
So
We're not going to go over all.
no, we're not going to go over it. So, but Jeff, would it be possible just to share the table of contents with everyone?
Yes, and I think that's yeah. Let's look at that. Okay, so I'm going to roll up the table of contents, and this was published in July 1999
Yep.
in France. Okay, here's the table of contents, and this is what I think is really pretty cool about this. All right, take a look at some of the things that are in here. Chapter 1.
Testimonies of French pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 2, aeronautical cases throughout the world. So now they're comparing the French pilots' testimonies with testimonies across the world. So they're looking for commonality. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for repeated patterns.
Right.
And as in research, Jeff, whatever the research is it repeatable? And you have to see it in context. So they are looking for repeatable patterns in context.
Right.
Chapter 3, sightings from the ground. So that would be a close encounter of the first kind.
Or quarter kind.
Or quarter kind.
Because I had that one.
I like that.
I was on the
Quarter
ground.
kind, yeah.
Quarter kind.
And
I
then,
like that. That's
yeah.
I
And
forgot
then
to do that.
and then chapter 4 is close encounters. That would be first, second, and third.
Yes.
And Jeff and I went through it, and their testimonials, actual testimonials, historical testimonials, that they have in this document.
Mhm.
And chapter 5, again, a good researcher is going to want to also try to disprove the
Yes.
phenomena somehow. So they
Right.
have counterexamples of phenomena that have been explained. It wasn't many cases when Jeff and I went through the document. It was a handful of cases that
Right.
they could explain through man-made means or weather phenomena. Otherwise, the bulk of the cases went unexplained. And that's just the first 5 chapters, Jeff.
Right. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then the second part too is kind of the methodology of research. Now, this is more
Mhm.
from a research perspective. You go over scope and sequence, rationale, and methodology of research. So that's much
Right.
more statistical.
Right. And this is what's key right here is
Yeah.
part 2 is the extent of our knowledge. So they're basically going to lay out the extent of all the knowledge that they have in this document at that time, at that given point.
Yes.
And that, like I said, this thing's 83 pages long. We're not going to go through these pages with you guys. We wanted to show this. I did link it in the chat.
I was going to ask.
I got ahead of you on that one. So
Yeah.
I linked it in the chat. So
And
you
it's
guys
in
can check
it's in the
this out.
YouTube side. It's on the YouTube channel, right?
Yes,
As
it's
an
on
Easter
YouTube.
egg
And it's Twitch
present.
also. It's up on
Okay.
Twitch. As
Okay.
well.
Great. And chapter 8, Jeff. I mean, chapter 8 was fascinating. Hypothesis and modeling attempts. So they're trying to, like Jeff and I were doing before in the show, they're trying to, with the cloaking kind of conversation, they're trying to either explain it away or explain what it is, making certain assumptions. Okay, if it's cloaking, this is what it would look like, and they're kind of walking down that road.
Right. And that's what Al Stylin said.
Yeah.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8.
Yep.
And then part 3, Jeff. What do you think of part 3?
Part 3, I thought was pretty cool because now they're talking about the implications. The scientific and technical. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. And then I have a question for you.
Well, the aeronautical implications. Okay. So what, maybe getting in the way of airplanes and not only military, but that's the way I take that. Aeronautical implications. So you're talking about interference with passenger airplanes, and military airplanes and things of that nature. Okay. Then chapter 12, the scientific and technical implications. Now that could be very broad there. I don't know, but you're talking about scientific and technical implications. Now, then you got and here's the big one right here, the political and religious implications. That one's huge. And that's something that, I've talked about because I am a Christian. And, you talk about, okay, so Jeff Freeman, if you find out if a mothership shows up and there's absolutely 100% proof that there's life outside of this planet, is that going to affect your religion? Are you going to stop believing in God at that point? We'll get to that in a few minutes. No. I'll say we'll get to that in a few minutes and we'll talk about that. But political implications as well.
And then media implications. But Jeff, this is the point of this. And think about it. Chapters 11, 12, 13, and 14. If there are implications, what does it mean?
To me, it means that they have determined that they're real and they are going to create some sort of implication that they need to be concerned about and think about it. Get a think tank going to think about how are we going to react to this.
Correct. And it was the same fear. And they had the French came up with a plan. It was the same fear of in '83, culture shock. But now the French, about maybe it was 16 years later, give or take, saying, hey, let's look at what the implications are. And, so right now, if you have the implications, the phenomena, they're basically saying the phenomena is real.
Yep.
They're not denying it here. They're saying, okay, look, it's like a court case. We just presented a case and laid out our case for the reality of UAPs and close encounters, because that's also included in the report. And here are the media implications. And then the appendices are always fascinating. The little tidbits they give you. What are those, Jeff?
Well, appendix number 1 is radar detection in France. So they have some radar detection. These are all things that they have. These are all the conclusions, recommendations, the appendices. These are things that they have. So you got radar detection, astronomers' sightings, life in the universe, colonization of space, and what about this one? Appendix number 5, the Roswell affair, disinformation.
Now, what the heck does that mean?
We're gonna have to go check
have to go through
5 and see what that's all about.
Because,
yeah.
Is it the disinformation that the American government has presented, or is it, so yeah, Jeff's posted this up, so anyone can dive in, feel free to, because I haven't gone through the whole document yet. It was just,
I haven't either.
Pages.
I haven't. Yeah.
Appendix 5 is definitely going to be on my agenda for reading tonight.
Yeah.
And then the long history of UFOs. And Jeff and I had discussed that at some point on Beyond Our World, and then reflections on various psychological and sociological implications, which is exactly what they were worried about in '83 during the Reagan administration.
Right. Exactly.
You're talking 16 years later.
Yep.
Subject hasn't changed.
Nope.
And they're still waiting. But I think with the advent, again, Jeff, the advent of the iPhone and the smartphone and everyone taking videos, there's just too many of them, and the governments around the world can't stop them. There's just too many accounts now.
Exactly.
You know.
Yep. Exactly. Let's see.
It's a very interesting document.
Yeah. Jan, that's interesting what you're saying there, and so we're going to touch on this here in just a little bit too,
Yeah.
because we've got another document that we're going to bring up here in a moment.
Sure.
Did we want to do that now? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems like an appropriate place for it.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Let's do that
Sure.
now.
Sure. Let's
So,
do that now.
so I'm going to close this one. I'm going to bring up this next document, and then we're going to take some calls.
Oh
We're at
yeah,
about an hour.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we'll show this next document, and then we're going to take some calls if you guys want to call into the show
Yeah. Feel
and talk
free.
about your experiences. So let me get rid of this, and then I'm going
I'm hoping
to,
at least a couple of you will call in tonight, because
you know,
I did hear about Bigfoot, and I don't mind you switching subjects, because this would be a nice breaking point. And this statement has to go with, I think I know the statement you're bringing up, with both life on this planet and elsewhere. Is that
Yes.
the statement you're referring to?
Yes, this is the one that deals with belief in God. Is that the one you were thinking
That's
of?
the one I'm referring to.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So here we go. I'm going to bring this one up. Now, this is a document from the Science and Space dated May 13th, 2008. And it says right here at the top, Vatican scientists say belief in God and aliens is okay.
Again, having been to the Vatican, are they trying to prime the pilgrims, Jeff? And that's what they're referred to when you visit the Vatican, you're a pilgrim. Or are they trying, I mean, you're talking, what, 1 billion Catholics, I believe, correct?
Something
So
like that. Mhm.
are they trying to say, hey, there's something to it, so it won't diminish your belief in the divine or God? And it makes sense, because one of the sociological and psychological implications was religious. So it
Mhm.
looks like the Vatican's trying to get ahead of the subject.
Yep. And I'm going to read a little bit of this real quick. And again, I'll do my best here. And I'm sorry for the way I stumble around with it, folks. But
Yeah.
this is a Vatican scientist says that to believe in God and aliens is okay. In my opinion, this possibility, and in parentheses, of life on other planets exists, says Reverend Jose Gabriel Funes, a
Mhm.
45-year-old Jesuit priest who is head of the Vatican Observatory and a science observer to Pope Benedict. Okay. How can we exclude life? How can we exclude life that life has developed elsewhere? He told the Vatican newspaper. Okay. And I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Observatory Roma. Okay. I did try to do it.
Yeah.
Explaining that the large number of galaxies and their own planets made this possible. Now, I'm going to scroll down here just a moment to get to this.
Whoa. Before we go to that, I didn't read that again, Jeff, before we get to the bottom.
This
Look at it. He
piece
said,
here.
how can we exclude that life has developed elsewhere, explaining the large number of planets and the large number of galaxies with their own planets made this possible.
Right.
So it's like the Vatican has the inside scoop, like, okay, life on other planets was made possible by the large number of galaxies. Is that what he's saying there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is he almost admitting, like, okay, there's life on other planets?
Yep.
And the Vatican, the Vatican archives, I mean, goes back. I mean, they have everything. So, for me, he's admitting right there. I believe he's admitting. I mean, you guys can chime in. I think
Yep.
he's admitting that, it's what made this possible.
Right.
Made what possible, Jeff? Again, it's the language. What's possible, Jeff?
Made fact that life on other planets is possible.
Yes. And the large number of galaxies made life on other planets possible. But that's not a theory. Is almost being stated as fact.
Well, it says right here, asked if he is referring to beings similar to humans or even more evolved than humans, he said, certainly. In a universe this big, you can't exclude this hypothesis. Now, he's calling it a hypothesis because we just don't know yet.
Officially, it's a hypothesis.
Officially, it's a hypothesis.
But the statement right before, it's almost like he said it and then kind of backtracked a bit. Because
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But I like this right here, and this is the thing that I was talking about the other
Mhm.
day. It says, just as there, the underlined portion, which is the one that really rams it home here,
Mhm.
just as there's the multiplicity of creatures on earth. Now he's talking about dogs and cats and birds and insects
Yeah,
and everything, all the life that exists on this planet.
everything.
Okay. Just as there is a multiplicity of creatures on earth, there can be other beings, even intelligent, created by God. This is not in contrast with our faith because we can't put limits on God's creative freedom. End quote.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I was saying the other day,
Mhm.
that even though I'm a Christian, does it say in the Bible that God didn't create life on other planets? Not that I've read, and I've been through it once and a half. I'm going through it my second time now, but I haven't read where it said that. That
Well,
didn't say that there's not life on other. And who are we as human beings to say that God couldn't create life on another planet? Do, do we know all God's plans? Do we know everything He's done?
not at all. And
Not at all.
it's rather arrogant for man to even think that
Exactly.
he can say that. I mean, it's
Yep.
just it's very arrogant. How can we really put limits on God's creative ability? We can't.
Yep. Yep, exactly. We were this Jan said, but we were taught that God created the universe, which should include everything in it. Maybe the other life in it has also the same concept with their own God. Hmm.
And what's interesting, if you look at Genesis, and the first four books of the Torah, first five books of the Torah, God created the heavens and the earth. I mean,
Hmm.
right away, the heavens, and that would include every bit of life that would be in the heavens.
Hmm.
And even if there's no belief in God, and you're welcome to that opinion, you still have a first cause. You still have a big bang. You have. I can't imagine, Jeff. And as you think about the intelligibility of or the patterns that it takes to make up a human genome, or the patterns that it takes up to make any genome, and the laws of physics, and the quantum physics, and there's all the patterns that those are all random. It's just I can't wrap my head around anyone and this is just me, and maybe that it is all random, but it's really hard for me to believe that it's completely all random.
Hmm.
There's just too many intelligible patterns there to think that life and the laws of physics, the quantum entanglement and all is random.
Hmm.
And it could be, but in my mind, highly unlikely.
Yep, I know.
And,
And just like Carl Sagan, the late Carl Sagan said, he was talking about that, with all the billions of stars in our galaxy, and many of them have planets going around them, and the billions of galaxies in this universe, billions of galaxies in this universe. If we are the only grain of sand in this entire beach that has life on it, that seems an awful large
mm,
waste of space, does it not?
mm, mm,
Yep, it sure does. And God created the heavens and the earth. So what
yeah.
says he didn't? Okay. So yeah, Barbara says the Vatican has many secrets locked up. Yes, they do.
That's very true.
Oh, they
Yeah,
do.
oh, well, Jeff, I did have a chance to tour the necropolis when I was
Yes,
there, which
tell
is
us a little bit about that.
that's interesting. And then I want to throw up a side dish after I tell the story. So you have to get special permission. My daughter and I went to the Vatican, Rome, about 10 years ago, and you have to go through the Vaticano Scavi,
Hmm.
which is a special department that grants access to the necropolis, which is what the Vatican was built on, which is
Right.
it's almost like a burial site. It's an ancient burial necropolis underneath the Vatican, which has catacombs. It's fascinating. You would have family tombs that you would go and you bury your dead. And when you go under there, there's all sorts of early Christian symbols. It's fascinating, but it's just like you would see in Angels and Demons. I couldn't believe it. They put the hand up right on the hand scanner and put in a code, and it like measured the fingerprints, and you saw the little
Mm.
come across, and they put in the code, and
Yep.
then hermetically sealed, so the door opens and you hear the kind of air come out of
Mhm.
the necropolis, and then you step through, and there was only 10 or 15 pilgrims allowed at a time. You had to get a ticket in advance, and it's like 50 American. I'm like, oh no, we're going to the necropolis. If I'm in Rome, I'm going. And then you go underneath and you see a lot of what the Vatican doesn't show the general public, tombs and symbols, and even the alleged bone of St. Peter,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
under there. And remember,
Yep.
Vatican was built on the bones of St. Peter, and they have found a well underneath the Vatican. One of the popes dug down, found a well, and found a cave-like structure, and it literally says, "Here lies Peter,"
Mhm.
and in the kind of slot where the cave is are a set of preserved bones. And they
Wow.
showed the pilgrims that, and you kind of get goosebumps because you're like, well, I can't prove because I say alleged, it's a matter of faith. But if
Right.
you're of the faith and you're sitting there and you're looking at literally the bones of St. Peter, you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So
Yep.
there are many secrets that the Vatican has that they will not make public.
Right.
Um, and I think they have known about extraterrestrial life for some time. That's my personal
Yes,
opinion.
I believe so too.
I
I
can't prove that,
agree.
but
Right.
I mean, I would love, yeah. Do you agree with the underlying statement from the Vatican? I'd love to see this as a side dish question right here. So if you agree with the Vatican, put in yes and why. How do you feel, about the Vatican stance on life on other planets? So I kind of be curious about that. But yeah, Jeff, if you ever have a chance to go to the Vatican, it's
I
worth
would
every
love to.
it's worth every dime.
Mhm.
And just to see it and realize its history. I can only imagine what's in the Vatican archives. Every time I
Oh,
see
oh,
Angels and Demons, it's one of my
I
favorite
know.
movies.
I know.
But every time
I
I
would
see that,
love to get in there. I think
I'm a
all of us would because I know they got a lot of secrets
absolutely.
in there. Yeah. Yeah. So
We have
so
a
there
couple
we are.
statements.
So do you
Yeah.
agree with the underlying statement that the Vatican is saying about this now? And again, does this, as a Christian, does this? Whoops, sorry. As a
Yep.
Christian, does this vindicate me or allow me to say that it's true? That I can believe in life on other planets. Paula agrees with the statement. She says yes. That the statement, yeah. So I mean, because I honestly I do. I have people who say to me, "Jeff, you're a Christian. How could you believe in life on other planets?" I've actually had people tell me that,
Hmm.
and I give them that same answer that I just told you. It doesn't say in the Bible that God didn't make life, and God created life. I think he created. I mean, you go back to that multiplicity, well, not multiplicity. What was the word they used in here?
Yeah, the,
Multiplicity.
the multiplicity of
The
creatures.
multiplicity of creatures that are on this planet. Just think of that just in itself for just a moment. How many different living creatures are on our planet? Thousands. Okay, not just human beings. Thousands of different kinds of creatures. Some are walking on 2 feet, some walk on four, some walk on six, some walk on eight, some fly in the air. I mean, you've got multiple. I mean, it's just crazy.
Mm.
Uh,
And how do you explain them all away, Jeff?
You
How do you
can't.
explain? How do
You
you
can't.
explain the creation of them all? And you can't. At
And
least
you,
not in
and
my
you,
mind.
and then you've also got the idea, and everybody's jumping in saying yes. um, but you also have with that, you have people that say, okay, there's no life on Mars. Okay, there's no life on Jupiter or Venus or whatever on these other planets. Okay, so now you got to remember that they're thinking about life as we know life.
Hmm.
Okay, as we know life, air breathing creatures that are warm blooded, and we need to be in this Goldilocks zone
Hmm.
where our planet orbits the Earth, because if we were out further, we'd freeze to death. If we were in closer, we'd burn up. So we are in that perfect spot to grow life as we know it, or to have life as we know it.
Hmm.
How do we know what life could exist on Jupiter or Venus or any other planet, Saturn for that matter? Let's see. What do we got going on here? So Paula said yes. Brenda said yes. Um, Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. I think you're talking about the Vatican right there. Knowledge is power. Guard the knowledge and maintain the power. Yes, yes, yes.
Absolutely. And there's so much that we don't know, Jeff. I think we know very little. We're
Mhm,
probably one half of 1% of all the knowledge out there in the universe, and we're just barely tapping into some of it now.
mhm. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Tom said Vatican is giving credit to the great creator, who they represent. Let's see.
Now, I got something I'd like to throw in here, Jeff, while you're
Mhm,
reading some of these comments. Um, I was at, as you know, Alien Con about 3 years ago.
mhm.
And I just sent you something which I thought was fascinating, which I would love for you to play. I know it's unscripted, so this is kind of a stream of consciousness between you and I. Um, Paul and I were discussing earlier this week how, and if we're going in down this road, how about 30% of the general population of the face of the planet have what's called junk DNA. DNA that they can't explain where it came from. And the DNA itself um, is supposedly from out of our planet. Okay, they just can't explain what the DNA is, and it's generally 30%. Now, at that Alien Con, Linda Moulton Howe, who a friend of mine videotaped at the time, I thought was brilliant, goes into this. I'm not sure if we can play that or if we want to hold
Sure.
off on that, but I just sent it to you in your Facebook,
Mhm.
and it's linked up to mine. But if we can
Yep.
play that, it's about 5 minutes, but I think it's totally worth a play because there are even portions of our own DNA that we can't explain. So if we're talking about life out there, we can't even explain some of the DNA within ourselves as a human race.
Mhm.
And there's about 30% of the general population which have supposed DNA that is not of this planet. And we have
Okay.
Jan. The universe is too big a space just to be wasted. Of course, there must be some kind of life on other planets. We're not the only ones. How could we be? And that's a great
Exactly.
point.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect.
Yep. All right. You want me to go ahead and play it?
Yeah,
All
I'm not
right.
sure. Have you seen this, Jeff?
No. Well,
Oh,
I saw it the other day, and I actually tried to play it, but I was in a place where I couldn't turn it up. I couldn't hear it that well, so I just stopped.
It's genius. And
All
this is
right.
Linda Moulton Howe. She was giving a talk, and I had a chance to meet her. She had a booth there, and we talked. In fact, I shared what I did about Nixon's interpreter with her, and she thought that was very fascinating. We talked for about 15 minutes on that. She thought that was very fascinating. But this was her giving this a lecture with other people that you've seen. I think William Henry's there and others. But when she said this, I'm like, oh, wow, this is just something really to think about. So go ahead and play it.
All right. I'm going to click on it here and see if I can make it bigger first.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the idea that it's not just something that people
whoops.
have been whistleblowing about in recent decades, but something that can stretch back.
Hold on. I'm gonna start it over so we can turn it up.
I
Okay,
just
cool.
came from a group of about 40 people.
Not just something that people have been whistleblowing about in recent decades, but something that can stretch back much further than that.
I just came from a group of about 40 people who had gathered around my table this morning. And in the last hour, we have been in one of the singular, most extraordinary discussions that I've ever had living on this planet. And it started with a woman who said, I just had my genetic material analyzed, and there is a portion of it, I think the genetic term is there's no antecedent. Last night, another person came to me and said that they had had their DNA done in one of these 23andMe, and that they had a portion of their DNA that had no antecedent. And they're asking me, what does this mean? In another part of my work now, I am in communication with people at some universities that are working on projects that you would probably put into the category either by assignment or they're being paid to look at the question for some agencies in our government, how many of the 7.2 billion and growing human population on Earth are now provable hybrids that are Homo sapiens sapien and something unknown? So the discussion this morning that led from the woman talking about and asking about, if I have no antecedent in some of my DNA, does that mean that I am extraterrestrial? This is a question in a new field that I think that the government of the United States has wanted to have it both ways. One, that they would begin analyzing the human population in terms of looking for hybridization that can be proved to be something that is alien combined with Homo sapiens sapien, and do it privately and keep the public and the media from ever knowing what was really going on. And I'm speaking, frankly, coming from the energy of that 40 or so people around my table, realizing that we are now at so many different intersections, but one of them that is going to continue to grow is if now getting our genetic DNA analysis done, whether it's through a TV commercial or some other reason, we have to come together as a human race and say to each other, no matter what is found in your genetic makeup, whether you are a hybrid, and one of the estimates on the current population of the Earth now is 30% of Homo sapien is now a mixture with another genetic that is not in the lineage of standing of primates on Earth. And if the governments understand that 30% of the current population on the Earth are now exotic hybrids, that instead of taking a position that this is a threat to the Earth, it is sort of what the rabbi is indicating and what William is indicating. You could say that Homo sapiens sapien, Denisovan, Neanderthalensis, and Homo erectus, they were all hybrids. And that the one big issue going forward from here on is going to be, we cannot turn into a planet where we are afraid of finding out who we really are, and that recognizing that there could be genetic manipulation in the 21st century by extraterrestrials should not put us at war with each other, and certainly not give governments a reason for some kind of isolation of populations to be annihilated. And this is a sobering subject this morning on Sunday, but I know now from this discussion I just had that it's on people's minds. And that whatever the ultimate truth is going to be about getting that we're not alone in the universe, that big headline, the much bigger story that is beginning to me to dominate everywhere is that humans are the greatest mystery. Who are we? Who really made us? Government documents that I have read say extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA and already evolving primates to create Homo sapien. That's us. So if we have been DNA manipulated beings for the last 45,000, 100,000 years, what's happening in these DNA tests is finally the discovery in a public way that we are a mystery. And in that mystery, to me, the fundamental part of us that is the most important is our soul. And it is not mythological. And that we are at a revolutionary time where hybrids, star children, Homo sapiens sapien, Neanderthalensis, Denisovans, We are all a huge mystery on planet Earth. And that the big thing that we have to do is to stop trying to kill each other.
Amen to that.
Okay, Jeff, what's your reaction? You haven't seen that before, so I kind of put a little ninja trick out there, a little mind trick. What's your reaction to that? When I saw that, I was blown away.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? In the fact that and again, this kind of this part of it kind of does play against me a little bit in the fact that talking about being manipulated, having our DNA being manipulated by extraterrestrials kind of plays into me a little bit, because now we're trying to say somebody's messing with God's creation. And that
Well, we've been doing it with cloning.
yes, we have.
We have, and there's that whole social ethical piece.
Right.
That should we be doing this? And that's more of an ethical question. So if we're capable of doing it, and we have, I mean, think about genetic mutated food, GMOs, and we've been doing genetic
with cows and chickens.
Yes, and chickens. Are we doing it? And is that ethical, Jeff? Because it feeds more people? It's a huge ethic.
Yeah.
And so, if
are we the chickens and the cows? For no. Okay, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there.
But think about it. If we're capable of manipulating DNA, and we're supposedly light years behind anything out there, and can we really explain, Jeff, why 30% of the human genome, and Paula said it was more like 15, but anywhere between 15 and 30, that's been manipulated, or let's say it's not even manipulated, it's unexplained.
Right. What's it doing there? We don't know what it's doing.
What's it doing there? It's unexplained. It's not like those DNA, strands don't have a purpose. They have a purpose. Maybe we haven't actualized that purpose. Maybe they're sitting there.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Ready to be actualized, ready to be turned on like a switch. Like maybe you have to turn these 2 or 3 switches on, and then that allows you to turn this switch on. And then if you turn these 2 switches on, maybe you can get this switch on. So maybe it's just being able to turn, and epigenetics is a whole study about this, where you're turning on and off the protein molecules that surround the DNA molecule, and being able to, depending on the proteins outside the DNA molecule, you can turn on and off certain genetics.
Right.
They study this in twins. But it begs the question, we're capable of doing it. So I'm not talking religious here. I'm kind of stepping outside kind of the religious implication.
Well, it is possible, like you're saying, that, God created us, and now somebody else is coming along and manipulating that. So is that possible? Yeah. I'm not going to say that's not possible, for sure. But then we start to get into the whole, discussion of evolution versus creation, and I'm not going down that road.
No, we're not. I'm just saying, is it
possible that our DNA is being manipulated by some sort of extraterrestrial? Yeah, I'm not going to say it's not possible.
And it's not everyone.
Right.
And
no, it couldn't be everyone.
No, and this is why,
again, the ant farm, yeah.
This is why I've talked to a number of experiencers, Jeff, and they say that the experiencers run in families.
Yes, yeah, I know.
And that would kind of lend credence to what Linda Moulton Howe is saying. If it runs in families, and ET studies specific families, now I'm not saying they've been genetically, that's kind of a big leap in logic. Oh yes, this is what it is. But people that have experienced it, and I'm not saying that's their kind of testimony. I haven't had such an experience, but they say that these run in families, that there are generations that have visited.
Yep.
What's Brenda saying here? Jeff, I do understand. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, she said she understands where I'm coming from and how I feel. It's okay to feel the way you do. Thanks. And Barbara said that gives me chills. It does kind of, doesn't
it? Does.
It does kind of give me chills.
And I'm definitely a Christian believer, but I have to look at it from science, and I think about how much historically that the church knew about certain scientific truths and suppressed them because it went against the official dogma of an Earth-centered universe.
Hmm.
It was always thought to be Earth was flat and it was Earth-centered, not sun-centered.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
just our own universe. That's not the billions of galaxies out there.
Right.
And Tom
Yep.
had something. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going through some of the chat that we
Yeah.
missed while that was running there, and yeah, Tom said uh, I don't think we are advanced enough to be able to understand DNA in totality yet. In the big picture, DNA analysis is a new science. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
And
I
the
agree.
big kind of threshold
Hmm.
in the science is epigenetics.
Hmm.
And there's a lot on it. It's how to turn on and off the different nuclear strands on a DNA.
Right. And this is true too. We're Jan is saying here that we do it with plants all the time. So of course, doctors are planning to do it with humans and animals. Always trying to improve. Don't know if that's such a good idea. I agree.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm not saying it is a good idea or not. I'm not getting into the ethic. That's a whole other show, of the ethic and that kind of. I'm not going to. Everyone believes what they want to believe. You know what I'm saying, Jeff?
mhm.
So
Yep.
for me, it's a matter of your faith and a conversation you have with your religious leader or whoever, or whatever divine being that you have a
Mhm.
relationship with or lack thereof.
Right. Yeah. Not everybody does. Not everybody believes in
Uh,
God. I understand that, and
yeah.
I'm not gonna, knock them for that. If they don't believe in the Creator, then that's their belief. I'm not gonna.
I like Paula's statement.
Mhm. Yep. The book of Genesis talks about the Nephilim,
Nephilim.
mhm,
Nephilim.
Nephilim,
Mhm.
part human, part. Yeah, I know. It
And I
does.
believe those were a race of giants. Now, what's interesting about
Mhm.
that is Jim Vieira, I believe that's his name, did a whole documentary on giant skeletons that were found amongst the Native Americans and the Native American grave, huge skeletons.
Yep.
And where were they from?
And
They,
exactly. And why did somebody come along and try to hide all that? They had
yes,
that one dig, and all of a sudden, all the bones are gone.
all the
It
bones are
doesn't like
gone.
it. Yeah.
I mean, what's the cover up? And you have, even biblically, you have David and Goliath.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Goliath
Yes.
being a huge human being. To
Right.
think that, that there weren't other variants of human beings before the dominant variant, kind of overpopulated the world. I think, and I mean, there's been articles I've read where there are a small race of hobbits, and I'm not saying
Mhm.
hobbits, but smaller human beings.
Right.
And you see that. So I think there were many variants of human beings at one time, and the current version that we see is kind of the one that won out.
Hmm.
You know,
Yep. Yep.
and
I
then
think so.
and then you have John Dee, and the Book of Enoch talks about 7 watchers, and who are those watchers. The Book of Enoch is fascinating. It's not an official book of the Bible, but the Book of Enoch is very fascinating, and it's
It
kind of
is.
interesting. I'm just going to throw this little tidbit out. The Book of Enoch is also something that Masonically is looked at as well. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep. Let's
Tate has
see.
something. Giants are a part of many mythologies and religions, and they are. They're a race of giants,
Mhm.
and easily could be these giant human skeletons that they're finding at Indian burial grounds, huge, and suddenly they all disappear. Jeff,
Yep.
suddenly
I
all the
know.
giant. I mean, why is that? Because someone doesn't want us to know the truth about this other, you know,
Yep.
variation of mankind.
Right. You're right. I
And
know.
what
And that just aggravates me to no end. But there are some pictures. Now people look at the pictures now and go, "Oh, those pictures aren't real. They're not real. They're fake or whatever." It's like even in the Bible it talked about, as we just said,
yeah,
David and Goliath. I mean, come on. It,
there had to be something to it, and think about it, Jeff. So there are different variants of human beings.
mhm,
We know that. Linda Moulton Howe talks about that,
mhm.
and there is, and this is just a scientific fact. There is there is certain about between 15 and 30% of the general population where they have genome that they can't explain.
Yep.
And there's different basically variants of human beings that can't be explained.
Right.
So just putting in a call for any
I'll put,
experiencers or
I'm putting up the
you
number
know.
because we got about a half an hour to
Oh, I
go.
saw that. Man, it's going by quick.
I
So,
know.
it's
And I
just a
wanted to get
fascinating
some, take some
discussion.
calls. If anybody we'll keep this, going
Yeah,
long
keep
here.
that.
But if anybody wants to call, feel free to please
Yeah.
call in and with your comment. It doesn't have to be a story. It can be a comment about what we've seen,
Oh,
what
I
we've
hope someone
talked
calls
about,
in.
what maybe something we haven't seen that you have something on a tidbit of information that would be interesting to everybody. Feel free to call in, and we'll do our best to answer you correctly and not hang up on you and put you on the air with us so you can talk about it. It's that. And again, you guys hear me say this all the time
Yeah.
on every podcast that I do. This is why we're doing this, because we want to share this information amongst all of us, not just sit up here and listen to John and I go on and on. I mean, we try to present some interesting information for all of us to digest and to think about and to discuss. I'm not saying that anything we've had on here is absolute fact or truth or whatever. We're not shoving it down anybody's throat. This is what we have uncovered, and we want to share it with you and get your thoughts and opinions on it. Yeah. And digest it and see what we think. So.
And when we're waiting for someone to call in,
we got a call.
Do we?
Yes.
Fantastic.
All right, Arizona. All right, let's take this.
Who's in Arizona?
Hello.
Hey, Jeff.
Whoa, let me turn that down just a smidge. All right, there we go. Hi, who's this?
Hi, this is Brenda.
Hi, Brenda. How you doing?
Hey, Brenda.
I'm good. This is a very interesting show tonight, I have to say.
I thought so too.
That's an awful lot of data. Some I wish to not go there, but I just wanted to actually talk about the cloaking aspect.
Oh, okay. All right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my experience with one that cloaked itself and uncloaked itself right before my eyes.
Wow. Ooh. Now, this was the one you were talking about across the street? Was that you that mentioned that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually.
So tell us a little bit about it. Describe this for us. So were you at your house when you saw this?
No, I was actually driving.
Okay.
Headed, I'd say like north on the street that I live on.
Okay. And
once again, something catches my attention and it's off to the left. And I have a couple of, one's a 3-story building by the canal.
Okay.
Which is what the Indians built for the waterway. And then there's my apartment complex. And then above that is like a movie theater, Harley shop, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Well, I'm driving up the road and we have these fun, like, those patio lights that you hang on your patio and you turn them on at night. Now, okay. Well, we have those that hang across our road because I live in a very, well-known, lots of restaurants around area. So it's a popular spot.
Okay.
So I'm coming up and all of a sudden to my left, I see something in the sky that's a dark, elongated object. And I'm like, whoa, there's no way that could be a plane. That's way too low to be flying next to these, like the freeway and the buildings and the apartment.
Now, did you say this was at nighttime?
No, it was broad daylight.
Oh, okay, good.
Whoa.
Wow. Okay. So you saw this thing happen in broad daylight. Wow. Was it clear skies or cloudy or?
Absolutely clear.
Wow. Okay. So you got a good look at this, man. Oh man. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. That's okay because the thing only had a shape. It didn't have any other aspects to it that was obvious. Right. So all of a sudden it like disappears behind this 3-story high building.
Right.
And I'm like, where did that go? There's no way, right? It could do that. And then as I was looking at the light to see if I could see anything else going on, all of a sudden, as it was going through the lights, it appeared in that shimmery, see-through, lucent.
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Okay, good.
Kind of like a little shimmery thing where it's like heat rising up off of a road that you see in the distance. It makes that little. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, where
Yeah.
it goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it goes right through the lights, and that's when I saw
Oh,
it
wow.
because it went through the building, so it had to cloak itself, right?
Yep.
And then it kind of still was cloaked as it went through the lights, but I could see it because it made it apparent. And then it went up the channelway, but after it got to the end of those lights, which is the other side of the street to the right-hand side, it went up the channel, which is our waterways. And I have to tell you, all of a sudden, the thoughts that were coming to my head was they were looking at how little rain we were getting.
Really? That's an interesting thought that would come to you on that. Wow. Okay.
That's exactly what the thought was, because I was thinking to myself, going, why would they be flying up the channel where the channel
Right.
is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
water?
Huh.
And then all of a sudden so I quickly went up the road and caught a bunch of guys in a parking lot because I live right by a baseball park where they do spring training.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right across the street. So I saw these guys there and I'm like, did you guys see that? Did you guys see that ship? Like, did you see that? And they're like, I'm absolutely insane. Well, one of them actually looks at me and I went, you're a believer.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I didn't see anything. And the other guys are like, wow, this chick's nuts, right?
Oh,
So that was just a story that, I mean,
Wow.
there's more. I'm not gonna go into it. I'll save them as we go down the road here in our week. But that was just one of the ones that came to mind as we were talking about cloaking, and then your one that you showed up by the space station. That's why I was thinking that it was like, hello, we're here,
Mm-hmm.
beep, beep, you know, and then all of a sudden it just recloaks and goes on its way.
Wow. Yep.
Now, when it cloaked, did you see any distortion, or was it just gone?
I'm not quite sure what that last word was you said.
This distortion, like, you know, sometimes when you see it distorted, it's not quite. You know it's there, but it's not quite right. Or did it just disappear?
It was almost like you knew it was there because you can see the, what do you call it? The loose, I think Jeff knows what I'm talking about. It's like it's kind of like a heat wave, like if it's 120 degrees outside and you look down the road and there's this vapor.
Yeah.
Yeah. The squiggliness. It's the distortion of the air, of the air around it. And you see it through that. So when that happened, when that went away, that was the last thing you saw, was that distortion?
Well, no. And then all of a sudden, as it got away from the light, it was like you could get how do you want to call it? A vision of something, and then it went away.
Wow.
So it was like it ended the light, and then you knew it was something, and then it was gone, like that.
Yep.
And the waterway runs pretty far. I mean, it runs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Distance, yeah.
Wow.
That's really neat to see something like that. And when was that? What year was that?
That was this year.
Oh, was this year?
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And you didn't get it on your cell phone? Oh.
I get so excited when I see these things because they fascinate me.
Yep.
That I don't even think about getting.
See, that's the key right there. Is that
it's all over? Yeah.
Yeah. See, we do that. We do that. We see something like that, and we're just so in awe that we don't think to pull out our cell phone and start getting a picture of that. But that's what we all have to remember to do, because my goodness, let's get this stuff documented. But yeah, that's wow.
Well, I do have a question. Has anyone else in your family also seen unidentified aerial phenomena?
Well, you asked me this last time.
Yep.
And just, I just have my son that sees them but doesn't want to admit, you know. But then my sister probably notices things, but I really think that that's all that I'm really alert and aware of,
Wow.
to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so what do you said you mentioned it to that one guy, and you said you're a believer. Do you think he saw it and he just didn't want to say anything in front of the others?
I don't know. I think he just knew that I saw something, and who knows?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's possible.
That's
I don't
pretty
know.
wild.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And that's something that John was talking about earlier when we was talking about this cloaking technology. And there's people talking about it, and it does. There's like a cloak. It's like a piece of material that they have that they can hold up in front of their body. I think we had a picture of it somewhere. Somebody had that they can hold up in front of their body, and it distorts it so that you're seeing around the body. You're seeing what's on the other side or on either side, superimposing itself over it, so it blocks out the person's body. You can't see the body. And the guy was holding up this piece of material over himself, or in front of himself. His head and arms were sticking out and his feet were sticking out because it wasn't that big of a piece, but all the rest of his body was gone. And it does create that. Yeah. And it does create that distortion effect a little bit. If it moves, it does create that shimmering heat coming up off the road. Look, the oasis in the sand is what I was going to think about too. They talk about the oasis. You think you see water in the distance is because of the heat that's rising, and it makes that shimmering effect. Tom Burns says it actually bends the rays of light around the object that's holding it up. Yeah, like Harry Potter. Jan said, like Harry Potter.
Like
Harry Potter. A cloak. Yes, exactly. And you could have seen that. Now they're obviously they didn't probably pull a sheet out and put it over this, whatever it was you saw, but it had the ability to create that electronically.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, who's to say? Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's funny because I'm going to tell one more thing so you could kind of compare it and see the difference. And I do this myself too whenever I experience this thing. And then I go, okay, well, how does that relate to this other one? Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Like what makes them different? Are they different entities or whatever? Right.
Yep.
Well, I was in the next town over here, which is Sun City, where all the old folk live, right? All the older retirees who just want to go play golf and play, right? And my ex and I were sitting out at the pool having a beer, and there was a big, like at the church there was a big, like a flea market type of thing, but with craft.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, my attention gets pulled upward. You know how you say eyes in the sky, right? And he was sitting right next to me. And I look up there and I went, look. And he looks up and he just like looks and then looks down and pretends like I didn't see anything. And what it was the color of like yellowish orange. And it almost looked like, it was very interesting because it almost looked like it was 3 balloons stuck together. Like if you were to take 3 separate balloons, but in a solid shape, right? And put them together. And then it turned. It first looked like 1. That's how it went. It first looked like 1, and then it looked like 3 because it made a shift.
Wow.
And he got up and went in the house. I was like, And I'm like, look, it's a spaceship. And he's like, and ran in the house.
Sorry. Go ahead.
And I looked back up, and it is gone.
Wow.
Nowhere to be seen whatsoever.
Yep.
Gone. And I thought to myself, and I went, Now that's really different because it showed completely and it made a shift.
Right.
So I was able to see different facts of it, right?
Right.
Where this other one is like, oh, okay, you know, we're here, we're checking out your water rates. And I tell you what, this year we've had more rain than what we've had in about maybe 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Mm.
You know, that's pretty interesting because that in itself kind of relates to what you were just talking about. You know, talking about the lack of you were talking about the lack of water a little while ago.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And now this one, you've had a lot of rain, right? So,
Yeah.
wow.
Interesting.
That's the one going down the thing. Now the orange one was probably about 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
But the one recent, well, I'm going to guess probably about 3 months ago, I'm going to guess
Right.
that
Wow.
happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the one that I saw, and I mentioned it was just a week and a half ago or whatever. My son was sitting on the deck, and we saw that one, and it was very clear, very bright, and it was moving very slowly, but it was moving, and it went behind a tree, and then I ran around waiting for it to come out the other side of the tree, and I actually went I went all the way across my yard, and it never did. It never reappeared coming out, and if it was a plane, I would have seen it. Let's say it was a plane that was reflecting the sunlight, I would have seen the plane because it wasn't that high or whatever. It didn't appear to be that high in the sky. So I mean, did it cloak?
Yeah.
It certainly
Who knows?
disappeared.
Wow.
It certainly
Right.
disappeared because nothing came around the side of that tree. And I ran all the way around there to look for it, and it was not there. Nothing was there. So,
Yeah, that's
Wow.
very flexible. And I really think that they show themselves to those who they want to have them see it.
Yep.
Mhm.
And here you are doing the show. And it could be, you know, they could be going, oh, this is the guy that's doing the show.
Yeah.
You know, now we just have to wait for John to have his experience.
Yep, exactly.
You know, and the whole thing is I think it's a point of interest to me.
Mhm.
I don't have anything else on them. Okay, they're there, you know, they're curious, whatever they've got going on is whatever, right?
Yep.
You know, and that's as far as I take it. That's as far as my interest point goes, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because they are fascinating to
Yes,
me.
absolutely.
You know,
I
and
think so
just
too.
really
Yep.
go, yeah.
I
and
do.
Absolutely.
yeah. And so that's as far as I want to go with it.
Okay.
I don't need to take it any further.
No, that's good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So John has shared a link with me. We were talking about that invisibility cloak or a sheet or whatever, and John has shared this with us. So we got a little YouTube video I'm going to show.
I think it's a minute long, about a minute.
Yeah. So I didn't know if you was that did you have anything else you wanted to share with us, Brenda?
No, you want me to stay online where you show the video?
Sure. Why not?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna play it. We're gonna play this little video. He found this. This is the invisibility, and this is something that somebody just mentioned it in the chat too.
Yep.
I saw it go by. Something about the military use. Yeah. So I'm gonna play this little video real quick. And you guys, it's really it's a minute one long. And let me switch over here real quick so you can see. This is from the YouTube channel called The Telegraph. So you guys can go ahead, and I did link it in the chat, so you can check it out there. So this is it. I'm going to make it full screen, and hopefully the volume is not too loud. So we'll give it a shot here and go with this. All right, here we go. I'll turn the volume on. Here we go.
There it is, right there. Whoa.
It's hiding that plane on the other side. There's hiding a tank, or tank's hiding itself.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So there you go.
So you took my master.
And
Yeah.
that's that. I tell you what, and that is something that has been developed.
And where did they get the knowledge?
Exactly. Yep. Oh, we
Well,
got somebody else calling in.
Oh, okay, cool.
So anyway, yeah.
Okay,
So
somebody else is calling in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go.
Okay,
Hopefully
sounds
it's,
good.
Or hopefully it's our Bigfoot person.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whoever that was, they hung up. So I'm going to say, whoever that was, please call it back in. And again, thank you so much, Brenda. Feel free
Thanks,
to call in
Brenda.
anytime. We appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks you guys.
All right,
Fun
bye-bye.
being able to talk. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, so whoever that was calling in, please try again. I think it said Wisconsin, but that was great. Thank you so much, Brenda. And that was but that little, while we're waiting for this person to call back, that little clip right there, that's the technology they have developed it, and it's bending that light around the
Now,
object.
Jeff, if you're 10,000 to 20,000 feet, like that was pretty close. If you're 20,000 feet and had that technology in the sky, could you really? No.
You'd
See,
never see it.
There's a certain, there's a certain light spectrum that humans can see. There's certain, limitations to human senses.
Right.
So if you develop something beyond that limitation, then you would never see it.
No.
I mean, the invisible cloak, you could see a tiny, tiny bit that there was a person behind that, but not really.
Not
But
really.
if you're, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000 feet
You'd
away,
never see a thing.
you never see it. To your eye, it would be invisible. And we have that technology. So if we have it, if there is anything out there, they most definitely would have it.
Yep.
I think I know where she was going with that. Is it reverse engineering? That was the
It could be.
implication.
It could be. Absolutely. All right, here come. Oh, it's
Okay.
Wisconsin Rapids.
Wisconsin.
Rapids. All right, here we go. I'm going to take this call. Swipe
Okay,
in any
cool,
direction. All right,
cool.
make sure I don't mess this up.
And this will probably be our last call for the evening.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Our World. Who's this?
Hi, this is Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hey,
How you
Mary.
doing?
Good, and yourself, John?
I'm having a
Jeff?
great time tonight. All right, what do you got for us?
Well, many years ago, probably the early 70s, my parents and I had gone out. I live in central Wisconsin along the Wisconsin River.
Okay.
And we had gone out to the farm, my grandmother's farm, and laughingly, because my dad was going to dig worms to go fishing the next day. On our way back, we were driving, and I was driving, my dad was in the back seat, my mom was in the front, and I noticed a very bright light, large light over a small town near here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very soothing, comforting light. Wasn't anything to be really concerned about, but it just kept my eye on it. And as we drove, it never really changed size, no matter how close we got to it.
Wow.
And as we were driving, we got up to this small town, and on the outside of the town, there is a grotto. And along the highway, there were probably 30 cars all sitting and looking in the direction of this light.
Wow. So they all saw it.
And it was almost like looking at a bath puff when you puff it. It was, very soft. It wasn't a sharp light.
Uh-huh.
And it had a tendency to go from like a yellow to a salmon to a light pale blue to a white.
Wow.
And I pulled over, and my mom and I were talking, look at it, look what it's doing, and that. And as we watched, it split. And then the two split again. So there was a total of 4 of them.
Wow.
And at that time, we didn't know anything about G-forces or anything, but it was just amazing that it had come apart like that. And as we were watching it, it came apart, and everybody was sitting in their cars. Nobody was following it. Nobody was getting out and looking. But we knew that everybody was watching the same thing we were.
Wow.
And just shortly after that, we watched probably 15 minutes, and it
just hovered with the 4, and then it kind of rotated a little, all the while changing colors very softly. And we were talking and about it, and my mom turned around to my dad and she asked him, "Well, don't you see that?" And he said, "I'm back here with my pitchfork." That's all he'd say.
My pitchfork?
And yeah, well, he had been digging worms, so he had his
Right. Oh, man.
And the other caller that Brenda had mentioned about her ex, and I'm like, yeah, gotta be a guy thing. But anyway, we watched it for a good 15 minutes, and as fast as this had come apart, it was like whoosh, everything pulled together, and it just disappeared.
So it didn't streak
Totally
off; it just disappeared.
Just totally disappeared. And now, on the way home, my mom and I were talking about it. All the while, my dad was absolutely silent as a mouse.
Wow.
And anytime we ever talked about it to anybody, my dad he was mum, like he never saw anything. So we don't know if he saw anything or not. But in answer to John's question to Brenda, my mother and I had seen it. And the two of us, we chatted back and forth about how could it be swamp gas? Well, being on farms in lowlands, we kind of knew what swamp gas was, and this was very, very high. It was, you were probably sitting in the car looking up at probably a good 80 degrees up in the sky.
All right. Yep.
And when we went out to my grandmother's farm, my grandfather had passed and my grandmother was living alone. We started telling her about it, and she mentioned that she had been seeing the same thing 3 or 4 times.
Really?
Out in the farm field.
Wow.
Up high when she sat on the porch. So in answer to John's question, yes, the 3 women in the family had seen it. Don't know about my dad, but
Wow. You never would say.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to share with people. And this was back in the 70s, and at that time in our area, we were seeing people were reporting UFOs in different areas. But what we thought was funny about this was we were getting the paper, and people had been reporting it, and it would be put in the paper that something was seen in such and such an area.
Right.
That night, out of the, like I said, 30 or 40 cars that were sitting along the highway, nothing appeared in the paper about anybody seeing it.
Interesting.
Although all these people were sitting there watching it.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I have no idea why.
And again, that's one of those times where you're thinking, man, if they had cell phones to take pictures of these things. All those people sitting there. A couple of things you mentioned about this that really keys with me was that you talked about it splitting. Now that's something that we have seen recently, and some of the the footage that's coming out from different people. We've seen that very same thing. You see one light to begin with, and all of a sudden another one like drops out of it, or becomes 2, and now it becomes 3, and now it becomes 4, and they all seem to be coming from the main central mothership or whatever you call it. That was key, because when you mentioned that, that's not something we heard about back then, but we're hearing about it now.
Right, and it probably did happen, but at that time, people didn't say anything about it.
Wow.
I don't know. But yeah, that was the, and like I said, it was, just a common looking light, very soft, and, you wouldn't think anything of it other than the fact that as I drove towards it, it always stayed the same size.
Right.
And it drew my mother's and my eye. And when we got up and everybody was watching, we stopped and watched too. And I'm glad we did.
Oh, absolutely. My goodness, what an experience to have.
Wow.
And another thing that you mentioned about that reminded me of a UFO sighting that I had when I was in the 70s. This was back in the 70s.
Mhm.
And it was over, I was looking north. I was living, this was in central Ohio, and I was looking north, which would have been towards from Columbus up towards Delaware, Ohio.
Mm.
And this,
Mm.
when you mentioned the colors, that's what got me on this one, because the one I saw was originally like an orangish color,
Mm-hmm.
and then it became more of a salmon color, like you had mentioned.
Mhm.
Now it didn't change any other color, just those two, and it was a larger circular light that was, now this one was only about 10-15 degrees above the horizon. It was not very high at all. And it was it was looking directly north, and I thought, oh, maybe that's the moon. And I went, wait a minute, moon doesn't, it's not in the north. For one thing. And then I looked at it, and and I looked at it for quite a while, and it just stayed in the same area. It did not move from where it was. So when you said the colors, that made me think of the one that I saw over Delaware. It was that direction, and it was pretty good size.
Wow.
Yeah,
Light.
it was.
Mm-hmm.
I would say even with us being on the ground, it was easily the size of a saucer from a cup saucer
Wow.
up there.
Wow.
Like I said, it was neat to see. I'd love to see one again. But up until now, the only thing I have seen, and this goes to John's cloaking, is I was summer vacation relief at one of the paper mills in the area, and we would take our breaks outside. The paper mill was right along the river, and several times we would be looking out on a clear night, and all of a sudden, like a black, not really perfectly round, but roundish shape would just go in the sky and block out the stars. And we would do that. Don't know if that was cloaking or if it was some other phenomenon, but that was something that we had seen while I was in the 70s area.
Right.
There.
Wow. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for your time.
Wow.
I'll let you go back to the program. Very awesome program tonight. Thank you for starting.
Thank you for sharing.
That was fantastic. My goodness.
Thank you so much. And feel free to call in again anytime. Wow. Appreciate that.
Thank you again, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
That's really cool. And that whole thing about the splitting, those with the light splitting, and again, like I said, that to her, that it did that. Mary, that was her name, was Mary.
Mary.
Yes. Today we've seen that. I've seen that on videos that have been shown.
There's this one video that shows them going behind a group of hills or mountains and then rotating out, and then now there's 4 of them.
Right.
And I think for the next show, Jeff, we need to pull in some of these splitting videos. I mean, I'll be glad to research it for the next show.
Yes, please do that.
And just look at that phenomenon, because people are seeing this, and Mary's not the only one that has seen that phenomenon. But again, it's repeatable, and when it's repeatable, there has to be something to it.
Exactly right. Wow.
Yeah,
we've gone over 2 hours, but I didn't want to.
No, fantastic.
And I just wanted to say, I know this is one of those times where people if you want to go longer, that's fine. We'll do that. If anybody else wanted to call in, we're going to start wrapping things up here a little bit. But please, if anybody else wants to call in, feel free to do so. The number's still up there. Man, I'll stay on if people want to still talk. I'll, and talk about some experiences. I'll definitely stick around. I don't have anywhere I got to be in the morning. But that was really cool. Thank you, Mary. That was really, really neat. Fantastic. I'm glad you called in and shared that. And that, like I said, that reminded me so much of that experience that I had in Ohio. And I was a teenager back then, and kind of dating myself there a little bit. But in the 70s, that was one of my 2 experiences. My next experience from that, the one that I'll share next time, I guess, was more profound than that. But that was definitely a decent one that I saw then. And again, it seemed like it was a long way away, but yet it was pretty big. But I don't remember ever looking in the paper to see if anybody, had said anything about it in the paper or anything. I don't think I even took it that far at that time. I was only probably 15, 16 years old. So, yep. Wow. So that was really cool. Man,
what a show.
I know.
We've gone the gamut tonight, Jeff. This has been quite a show.
I know. And I did want to say too, that coming up, folks, that we kind of, John and I decided to do these. We talked about it and thought, well, let's give this a trial run and see what kind of interest it brings up and how many people want to hang out and talk about UFOs and UAPs and paranormal stuff with us. We had a pretty good crowd tonight. I think it would have been a little bit more if we had the Facebook thing working, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So I don't know if everybody got the word to come check it out over here on YouTube, but I'll try to get that fixed. The thing is that we did this on Friday nights. I generally have commitments on Friday nights coming up in the fall. I will. So we were trying to think about what other night to do this other than Friday night. We did it this way for now. And also, do you guys want to continue? Is this something you would like to see us continue talking about and investigating and giving information and discussing? Let us know in the chat what you think about that. If you'd like to keep it going. I told John, I said, let's give it a trial run. And if we get interest, then we'll keep it going. And I don't know what night right now, but we can certainly, Kate says, continue. Jan says, yes, please. I don't know what night. And now, that I'm also involved very heavily with the Curse of Oak Island, talk. And that is on Wednesday night. So we can't do Wednesday nights, and Tuesday night is the show that will be coming out, the Curse of Oak Island. So Tuesday night and Wednesday night are definitely off the table. But what do you think? Thursdays, as long as they keep coming, let's see. Brenda says Thursdays, as long as you keep coming up with things on the subject. Absolutely. I think there's plenty of.
There's plenty. We had a request for cryptoids too, Jeff.
Oh yeah.
So we could do a whole show. And if you have anything subject wise that you'd like us to do a show on, we can certainly research it and prep for it, and make it into an actual either a portion of the show or the whole show. I mean, I love talking about UAPs and the whole kind of nature of mind and life on other planets and life here. I think it's fascinating, but we're open to any plethora of subjects.
Okay.
It's beyond our world, Jeff. It really is beyond our world.
It truly is. I know. Paula said Thursdays. Wanda said Monday or Thursday, and she would like to see it continue as well. Let's see. What does it say here? Let's see. Do you have to have an invite to watch, or can anybody join the chat? No, anybody can join the chat.
Yeah.
You can watch it on YouTube like you're watching now. Everybody's watching for the most part, everybody's on YouTube right now watching. You can watch it there, or if I can get this Facebook working, and we had it working last week. I don't know what happened tonight, but I'll get that figured out.
And Jeff, a lot of interest in Thursdays. I'm certainly available Thursdays.
Okay. There would be a few Thursdays here and there that I could not do, but yeah, a Thursday would be all right with me. I'm okay with Thursday nights.
Yeah.
We'll just have to make sure I get all my we get prepared for it earlier in the week, because once Oak Island gets rolling, I'll be tied up. Well, we're going to be doing Wednesdays and Saturdays for Oak Island here. Pretty
Absolutely.
Heavy coming up. So
if anyone sends me, something on Facebook, I can certainly research the subject out, and then Jeff and I can discuss it. So feel free to come up with topics that you like to discuss, and certainly, Jeff, I think for our next show, definitely splitting UAPs and things of that sort. I'd love to pull up some footage and discuss that. So I say that's how we start our next show.
Okay. And then we did at some point we wanted to get into everybody's saying Thursdays looks good. Okay, well we'll shoot for Thursdays then. Now and as you know too, I will be going out of town. We will not maybe we could do something next Thursday. Can you think we could put something together for next Thursday? Friday, I'm committed. Next Friday, I'm definitely
Jeff,
not.
100%. Something will be put together for next Thursday.
Okay. All right. Yep. Well, let's try to shoot for Thursday next week, folks. We'll see what we can do. I do have a show we're doing on 25th on Wednesday night, but I think as long as John and I can get together and get our show together, we could definitely do something on next Thursday. the 26th, and we'll just keep it rolling. Then I like it. I'm glad you guys are interested in that. Because I love talking about it. I really do. I could go on. We still wanted to talk about early man and how early man was affected. We think visited by UFOs and UAPs, and recorded that by stone carvings and pictographs and all that. So.
And we still have, how it was recorded in Renaissance and medieval images. Whether it be stone or paint or whatever the medium was. So we have so much that we didn't even get to tonight, Jeff.
I know.
It's been dense, and we still haven't even touched what we prepared for. So we
I know.
have many more shows left in us.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. We put together quite a bit. We wanted to talk about. We barely we didn't even get through all the government officials yet.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
and
much.
The Arizona lights that we were going to show some of there was a couple of really cool interviews by the governor of Arizona, Fife, Governor Fife.
Yes.
From Arizona that we wanted to show too. So abductions. Yes. And somebody had mentioned too about the ones that go underwater. Is that called a underwater unidentified underwater? No,
it's a submersible
submersibles, yeah.
Phenomena. SU, I think it's an SUP.
SUP? Yeah,
submersible unidentified phenomena. I think that's.
Tell you what, man, there's so much we could cover on this, folks. And like we said, because of the fact that we're getting government disclosure now, to a degree, that this is all the more reason that we need to be talking about this. And are we conditioning ourselves to prepare for this? Maybe. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean,
and Jeff, this format and what we're doing for the viewers and giving everyone a voice. I love it when people call in because it's their show. We're just here talking, but it's really their show. And I think groups like this and what we're doing here, is needed. The discussion has to be had.
Yes, I agree. It does have to be had. Yep.
And I think this format's a very important format.
Yep. Tell your friends, tell your family members. If anybody else is interested in this sort of thing, tell them to come on and talk to us about it, man. We love that, and that's the reason for the show. Just like John just said. Yep. All right, so I guess that's it for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, and we'll keep the phone. We'll keep that phone every week. We're going to have the phone. We're going to take calls every week. It doesn't matter what John and I are talking about. We'll take calls every week, folks. Now remember, this will be up on Facebook. I mean, not Facebook. Well, we will. We'll link it on Facebook. So in the group on the Beyond Our World Facebook group that you can join and help and just do some discussions in there as well. And of course, it'll be on JFree 906. And if you're out there on JFree 906, click that subscribe button for us. It really does help us out a lot. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and it does help a lot if you do that. If you click on that, and if you click on the notification bell, you'll be notified right around as soon as we put up new content. Because sometimes it's recorded, and we just pop it up there when we can. Because John and I are going to be going out of town over Labor Day weekend. We're going to be gone for several days, so we won't be doing a show then. So maybe we'll have something recorded for you. I don't know, but that would be how you'd find out. So
we have an invite. I'm going to say it. We have an invite to the Wisconsin site.
Yes.
So Jeff and I are going to check that out with Wayne Murphy. So it'll be something that we will report back at some point. Yep. So it'll be great.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Well, thank you so much, folks, for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. And thanks for those who called in, Mary and Brenda. We really appreciate that. We love hearing those stories. You guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time right here on Beyond Our World. Good night.